The first study found that the more obese friends you have, the more likely you are to be obese. And that's not just because people choose friends who look like them. The new research takes that finding one step further. Co-author David Rand, a Harvard biologist, says researchers wanted to predict patterns of obesity using a mathematical model that charts the spread of more typical infectious diseases.
The definition of contagion in our world means the more social contacts you have in a given state, the more likely you are to switch to that state. And so that's the classic way that you study infectious disease, and it's the same thing that's going on in these sort of social transmission settings.
Rand says researchers don't know exactly why having obese friends leads to weight gain, although they guess that groups of friends share the same ideas on acceptable body size, eating, and exercise habits. But he says weight loss does not seem to follow the same pattern. In other words, the contagiousness is only in one direction.
The more obese friends you have, the more likely you are to become obese. But once you look at the obese people, the number of non-obese friends they have doesn't have any influence on their probability of losing weight. So it's like, when you catch the flu, the more friends you have that have the flu, the more likely you are to get the flu. But then once you get it, your immune system just fights it off on its own, and what's going on with your social contacts doesn't matter.
Using health data from the famous Framingham Heart Study, Rand and his colleagues determined that a non-obese American has a 2% chance of becoming obese in any given year, and that likelihood goes up by almost half a percentage point for every obese friend he or she has. They also found another surprising trend.
So if you look back maybe 40 years ago, which was when the Framingham Heart Study started collecting the data that we use in the study, there was almost no social component, and the status of your friends had very little effect on you. But over time, the amount that you're influenced by your friends in this respect has gotten more and more significant. There's been really a dramatic increase in the social nature of obesity.
Again, Rand says the study authors can only speculate why the rate of social contagiousness is going up. He thinks people are more connected to each other than they used to be, including through social media. More important is what this rate of contagiousness says about the future of body size in America. Currently, about 30% of Americans are considered obese, and some experts believe that is as high as the rate is likely to go. But by plugging population data into an infectious disease model, Rand predicts that the rate of obesity in America will plateau at 42% by the year 2050.
That's, in some sense, an optimistic prediction, because that's assuming that the infection rate stays the same as it is right now. But if we look back over the last 30 or 40 years, the infection rate has been significantly increasing over time. So there's some reason to believe it will continue to increase, which would mean that we would get even higher than 42%.
Rand says social factors are certainly not the only ones making America heavy. They interact with food, exercise, and genetic predisposition. But by understanding the social transmission of obesity, Rand says public health workers may be able to develop better interventions, including one in particular.
If you can help your obese friends lose weight, then that reduces your own probability of becoming obese in the future.
The new study appears this week in the journal Public Library of Science Computational Biology. For WFCR and WNNZ, I'm Karen Brown.